The sun hung low above the countryside road, glowing bright and warm against the dusty air. It should have been an ordinary afternoon, silent, peaceful, predictable. But for Sarah, nothing about this day felt normal. She drove slowly, her small silver car humming quietly as she made her way home from school. She had stayed later than usual, preparing lesson plans for the next day. She was tired but calm, enjoying the daylight stretching across the open fields. And then she saw them, a man and a boy, walking alone along the empty roadside. Sarah tapped the brakes without even thinking. Something about the scene pulled at her chest. The little boy, no older than 7, was leaning heavily against the man's arm, stumbling every few steps like he could barely stay awake. His small backpack bounced weakly on his shoulder. The man kept glancing over his shoulder, scanning the fields, the road, the distant houses, everything. Not like someone who was lost. Like someone who was being watched. Sarah swallowed hard. What on earth? She drove past them slowly, her eyes flicking to the rear view mirror. The boy tripped, his knees buckling. The man caught him before he hit the ground. That was it. Sarah's heart wouldn't let her drive away. She reversed the car a few meters until she reached them again, rolled down the window, and called out gently, "Excuse me? Are you two all right?" The man straightened, shielding the boy behind his leg, protective, tense, almost too quick. He wasn't surprised to see her, but the sharp look in his eyes made her breath hitch. He looked dangerous, but exhausted. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing scratches and dried blood near his elbow. The boy peeked at her from behind him, his lips trembling. Sarah forced herself to smile. "The boy looks tired. Do you need help? I can drop you somewhere." The man hesitated. His eyes were dark, unreadable, constantly assessing her, the car, the surroundings like he was mapping every possible danger. The silence stretched so long she began to regret slowing down. Then he finally spoke. His voice was deep, calm, but heavy with something she couldn't understand. "We're just traveling. We'll manage." He tried to take a step, but the boy tugged at his shirt weakly. "Papa, I can't walk anymore." That broke Sarah. She opened her door and stepped out. "Listen, I live just 10 minutes from here. The boy is exhausted. Let me help. At least let him rest for a while." The man's jaw clenched. She saw a flash of conflict in his eyes. Fear or calculation. He exhaled slowly. "All right, just for a while." Sarah guided them into her car. The boy settled in the back seat, head leaning against the window, eyes half closed. She turned to the man. He sat rigidly, his body tense as if he expected danger to jump out of the sunlight itself. "My name is Sarah," she said. He nodded once. "Armin. And your son?" "Ishan." Sarah smiled at the boy in the mirror. "Hi, Ishan." He gave her a small, tired smile. The road stretched quiet and peaceful as they drove, but Sarah felt the air in the car thicken with unspoken tension. Every time another vehicle passed, Armin's fingers twitched. When her phone rang in her bag, he stiffened so sharply she thought he'd reach for something. Sarah's thoughts raced. Who is he running from? Why is he so alert? Why is he hurt? But then she looked at Ishan's drowsy eyes and reminded herself that whatever their story was, the child didn't deserve to suffer. They reached her house, a small, cozy farmhouse on the edge of town. Bright flowers lined the walkway. Curtains fluttered in the gentle breeze. It was safe, warm, home, at least, until now. Armin scanned the entire property before getting out of the car, his eyes moving from window to door to tree line like he was assessing escape routes. Sarah watched him uneasily. "Come in," she urged, unlocking the door. Ishan walked in first, immediately drawn to the soft sofa. He sat down and pulled his little backpack onto his lap. Sarah noticed him wincing as he touched his ankle. She knelt down beside him. "Are you hurt?" The boy swallowed. "We walked a long time." Before she could say more, Armin stepped behind them, silent but commanding. "It's just fatigue," he said firmly, as if cutting the topic off. Sarah met his eyes. There was something in them. Something that made her feel like she was talking to someone who carried more weight than he showed. But kindness tugged at her again. "I'll get him something to eat," she said softly. In the kitchen, she worked quickly. Sandwiches, warm soup, a glass of water. Through the half-open door, she watched the two strangers. Ishan ate quietly. Armin sat on the edge of the sofa, his posture straight, eyes shifting to every noise, every window, every shadow, like a man who could never relax. Sarah finally asked gently, "Where were you headed?" Armin paused. "Somewhere safe." "And this place wasn't the open road with your child?" He didn't answer. A cold feeling crawled up her spine. This wasn't a normal situation. This man wasn't simply a traveler. But she didn't sense harm toward her, only danger around him. As the evening light filtered through the curtains, Sarah showed Armin and Ishan the guest room. It was small but warm, with soft blankets and a night lamp. "Just stay for one night," she said. "The boy needs rest. Tomorrow you can continue wherever you're going." Armin looked around the room, scanning corners first, then the window lock, then the hallway behind her. Finally, he nodded. "Thank you," he said quietly. It was the first time she heard sincerity in his voice. Ishan smiled gently at her, barely able to keep his eyes open. "Thank you, Auntie. Sleep well," she whispered. She closed the door and leaned against the wall, her heart pounding for reasons she still could not name. What had she brought into her home? Her house fell quiet as night came. Sarah cleaned the dishes, checked the locks, and finally sat on the couch with a cup of tea. But peace refused to settle. Her mind kept replaying Armin's sharp eyes, his wounds, his strange tension. At around 11 p.m., she heard something, soft footsteps on the wooden floor. She froze. Maybe Ishan woke up. Maybe he needed water. She stood and walked down the hallway, the lights low and warm. But the guest room door was closed. Silence came from inside. Then, she heard it again. Outside, in her backyard. Her breath caught. She moved to the window slowly, her fingers trembling as she lifted the corner of the curtain. And the sight made her heart slam against her ribs. Armin, the quiet stranger, the man she had let into her home, was standing outside in the dark, talking in a low, dangerous voice to someone hidden in the shadows. She couldn't make out the words. She couldn't see the other person. She only knew one thing. This was not normal. This was not safe. And whatever Armin was hiding was bigger than she ever imagined. The morning sun rose softly over Sarah's house, spreading golden light across the small living room. Birds sang, leaves rustled, and the peaceful atmosphere tried its best to wash away the tension from last night. But it couldn't. Not for Sarah. She barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the image of Armin standing in the backyard, whispering to someone hidden in the shadows. She had watched until he walked back into the house, quiet and controlled, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't been talking to a stranger behind her home in the middle of the night. Now, sunlight filled the house, but Sarah felt none of its warmth. She stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing deeply before knocking gently on the guest room door. Armin opened it. He stood tall, refreshed, and calm, too calm, as if he hadn't spoken to anyone outside, as if the darkness hadn't swallowed him whole just hours ago. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady. Sarah forced a smile. "Morning. Is Ishan awake?" "He's feeling better." Ishan peeked around Armin's arm, smiling brightly when he saw her. "Auntie Sarah, can we have breakfast?" His innocent voice softened her heart instantly. Whatever danger Armin carried, the boy was blameless. "Of course," she said warmly. "Come." She walked toward the kitchen, feeling Armin's eyes on her with every step, watchful, guarded, unreadable. She could almost feel him reading her mood, figuring out whether she had seen anything last night. She said nothing. Not yet. Ew. Breakfast was simple: eggs, warm bread, and milk. Ishan ate happily, swinging his legs under the table, humming a cheerful tune. Armin sat across from Sarah, silent but alert, taking small bites and scanning the surroundings as if danger could slip in through the bright sunlight. Sarah noticed every detail: how he positioned himself facing the door, how his ears perked at every passing car, how he kept glancing at his phone, even though it didn't seem to have signals. "What do you do for work?" Sarah finally asked, carefully. Armin didn't answer immediately. He lifted his eyes slowly, meeting hers with a calm expression that felt rehearsed. "Security," he said. Security. Sarah had heard enough stories from villagers, men who said they worked in security, but were really part of something darker. Before she could ask more, Ishan wiped his mouth and smiled at her. "Auntie, your house is very nice." She smiled at the child. "Thank you. You like living with your papa?" "Yes." He nodded excitedly. "Papa protects me. He says I'm his whole world." Sarah's heart softened again. The boy adored his father, and Armin, despite his coldness, looked at the child with a protective warmth that couldn't be faked. But that warmth didn't erase the fear in his eyes. Something, or someone, was chasing him. Yulna. Late morning sunlight filled the house when Sarah walked out to the garden to check on her plants. She breathed slowly, letting the peaceful day settle her nerves. But even peace had its limits, because when she turned, she saw Armin standing silently at the back door, watching her with the same intense gaze he had last night. She froze for a moment. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Sarah nodded, heart pounding. He walked toward her, hands in his pockets, shoulders stiff. His voice was low and controlled. "I want to thank you for letting us stay. Ishan needed rest." "It's fine," she said. "He's just a child." Armin looked away, jaw tightening. "I know you have questions." Sarah swallowed. "I saw you outside last night." He didn't react. Not with surprise. Not with fear. Almost as if he expected her to notice. "What were you doing?" she asked. "A precaution," he said simply. "I couldn't sleep. I checked the surroundings." "Alone? In the dark? Talking to someone?" This time, his eyes flicked sharply toward her. She had said too much. "I wasn't talking to anyone," he said firmly. "Maybe you misheard." But Sarah wasn't convinced. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, "Armin, I don't know who you are or what you're running from, but I can't put myself in danger." "Or Ishan." Armin's eyes softened. "Just a bit." "You're not in danger," he said quietly. But even he didn't sound sure. Around noon, Sarah sat in the living room helping Ishan draw on a piece of paper. He giggled while trying to draw her house, the sun, and a little stick figure version of himself. It felt peaceful, almost like a normal day. But Armin was anything but normal. He stood near the window, staring outside with narrowed eyes. His posture was stiff, his fingers tapping rhythmically against his thigh. Not restless. Prepared. Prepared for something. Prepared for someone. Sarah's pulse quickened. Just then, a car engine sounded outside. A white police jeep. It slowed right in front of her house. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Ishan grabbed her hand tightly, sensing the tension. Armin turned rigid. The jeep door opened, and two local officers stepped out. Their faces were calm, but their eyes scanned the house with sharp attention. "Why are they here?" Sarah whispered. Armin didn't answer. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscles twitch. A knock came at the door, loud, official. Sarah stood, her hands shaking. Armin grabbed her wrist gently but firmly. "Don't tell them we're here," he said in a low, urgent voice. Sarah stared at him. "Why?" "Please," he said, the first crack of desperation in his voice. "Just trust me." Trust. How could she trust a man she didn't know? A man who brought danger to her home. A man who whispered to shadows in the night. Yet, Ishan was holding her hand with trembling fingers. She took a breath and opened the door. "Afternoon, Miss Sarah," the taller officer said kindly. "Sorry to bother you. We're checking the area for two suspicious individuals. A man traveling with a child." Sarah's heart hammered. The officer continued, Some reports say the man may be injured. We want to ensure everything is safe. Sarah swallowed, her throat burning with tension. No, she said softly. I haven't seen anyone. The officers exchanged looks. You're sure? Yes. No trouble at all? None. After a moment, the officers nodded politely and left, driving further down the road. Sarah closed the door slowly. Armin stepped out of the hallway, his face unreadable. Thank you, he said quietly. She turned sharply toward him. Thank me? You should explain yourself. The police were looking for you. Armin lowered his head, as if weighing a difficult truth. Finally, he said, I'm not running from the police. Sarah blinked, confused. Then who? His eyes lifted to hers. Dangerous men, he said. Men who won't stop until they find us. Sarah's chest tightened. The fear behind his eyes was real. This man wasn't just hiding. He was hunted. But still, she needed answers. Why? She whispered. Armin looked toward Ishan, who sat quietly on the sofa, hugging his little backpack. To protect him, Armin whispered. I'll tell you more, but not yet. Not yet. Words that sounded heavy. Words that meant the truth was darker than she imagined. And before she could respond, a car sounded again outside. Slow. Suspicious. Sarah's breath caught. Armin went pale. A black sedan. It stopped directly in front of her house. He turned to Sarah, his voice low, urgent, filled with warning. Don't open the door. No matter what happens. Sarah's blood ran cold. The sound of footsteps approached her porch. Her heart raced. Whoever was outside was not the police. For a long moment, there was only silence. Heavy, dense, suffocating. Sarah and Armin stood frozen inside the living room while footsteps echoed on the wooden porch outside. Ishan clutched his backpack tightly, his small fingers trembling. Sarah whispered, Who is it? Armin didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the front door, jaw locked, shoulders tense like a storm gathering inside him. He didn't need to answer. His body already spoke the truth. Danger had arrived. The footsteps stopped. A shadow fell across the frosted glass window of the door. A knuckle tap, slowly, deliberately. Tap, tap, tap. A voice followed, calm, cold, and far too confident. Open the door, Armin. Sarah's breath hitched. They weren't here for her. They were here for him. Armin didn't move. His silence was louder than any shout. I know you're inside. The voice continued, almost bored. And I know you're tired. Just open the door and give us the boy. We don't need a mess. Ishan whimpered softly and hid behind Sarah. Sarah's heart pounded so hard she felt lightheaded. Give us the boy. What kind of monsters were these men? Armin finally spoke, his voice low, steady, and terrifyingly controlled. Stay back from the door, he whispered to Sarah. She grabbed Ishan and stepped away, her whole body shaking. Another voice from outside yelled, impatient now. Armin, don't make this harder. You know how this ends. Armin moved toward the window, but kept his body behind the wall, avoiding any direct line of sight. He peeked just enough to see outside. His fists clenched. Two men, he whispered. Armed. Sarah felt her knees weaken. Armed? Her house, her safe little world, was now a target in broad daylight. Armin, she whispered urgently. Who are these people? What do they want with you? And with Ishan? He closed his eyes briefly, pain flickering across his expression. This was the moment he had been trying to avoid. The truth he never wanted to tell. He opened his eyes, and when he turned toward Sarah, something had changed in him. The wall he always kept up cracked. I didn't want you to know, he said quietly. I wanted to protect you from this. Protect me from what? She demanded, voice trembling. Outside, the men paced, cursing, knocking harder now. Armin inhaled slowly, and finally said the words that changed everything. I'm not in security. Sarah swallowed hard. Then what are you? Armin hesitated. Before Ishan was born, I was the head of an organization. An organization? Sarah's voice shook. You mean something illegal? His silence answered for him. Sarah stepped back, horrified. Armin, what kind of organization? He looked her straight in the eyes. The Mafia. His voice was quiet, but it hit like thunder. Sarah felt the ground slip beneath her. Her hands shook violently. A Mafia boss. In her home. Sleeping in her guest room. With his child. This was impossible. Unbelievable. How? Why? She stuttered. But Armin wasn't done. Not yet. The truth had only begun. I left that life years ago, he said. I walked away from everything I built, everything I controlled. I wanted a normal life for Ishan. His voice cracked for the first time. But men like me, we don't get to walk away easily. A loud bang hit the door, making Sarah jump. Armand, a voice roared. Open this damn door. Ishan flinched and buried his face into Sarah's shirt. Armin stepped closer to him and placed a hand on his son's head, protectively. Those men worked for me once. They think taking Ishan gives them power over me. Sarah's stomach twisted in horror. They want to use your son, she whispered. Armin nodded darkly. Because Ishan is the only thing I care about more than myself. Sarah looked at the boy, sweet, innocent, terrified. No child deserved this. Armin continued, voice heavy with guilt. I didn't tell you because I feared you'd throw us out. And I didn't think they'd find us this quickly. Another slam struck the door. This time harder. Wood cracked. Sarah gasped. They're going to break in. Armin scanned the windows, the doorway, the hall. His mind worked with terrifying intensity. Is there a back exit? He asked sharply. Sarah nodded, too shocked to speak. Good. Take Ishan and go through the kitchen. Don't stop. Don't look back. Get to the shed and hide. No, Sarah whispered. You're not facing them alone. I have to, Armin said. They're here for me. If you stay, you'll be in danger. I'm already in danger, she hissed. This is my home, Armin. You brought this to me. His face filled with guilt and a strange sadness. I'm sorry, he whispered. But please protect my son. Ishan tugged at Armin's sleeve. His voice was tiny, trembling. Papa, are they going to hurt us? Armin knelt down, cupping his son's face. No, Ishan. I'll never let that happen. There was a tenderness in his voice that tore Sarah's heart apart. But another crash hit the door, splintering a corner. Time was running out. Armin stood up suddenly. His expression hardened. He looked different now, not the quiet man she met on the road. This was a leader, a fighter, a man who once commanded fear. Go, he said firmly. Now. No, Sarah said again, this time not out of fear, but out of something deeper. I won't leave you. He looked at her, stunned for a moment. Then his shoulders dropped, not in weakness, but in something like gratitude. Sarah. He whispered her name like he was holding on to the last piece of humanity he had left. But he didn't get to say more, because suddenly, the doorknob twisted violently. Armin. Last chance. Armin grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her close. When they come in, he said urgently, stay behind me. Keep Ishan low. And no matter what you see, don't make a sound. Sarah's heart pounded, tears blurring her vision. This was real. This was happening. Her life had turned into a nightmare she never imagined. The door shook again. More splintering. More shouting. Armin positioned himself between the door and Sarah, his body like a shield. Ishan clung to Sarah's leg, shaking violently. Outside, the men made one final threat. Break it down. And then, bang! The door exploded inward. The men stepped inside. Sarah gasped. Armin tensed. Ishan whimpered. The sunlight behind the men cast long shadows through the broken doorway. Two of them, armed, cold, smiling. But one thing was clear. They didn't come to talk. Night arrived too silently, too quickly. Mira stood by her small kitchen window, watching the sky turn almost black, the kind of darkness that carried a warning inside it. The wind pressed against the glass like invisible hands. Something in her heart felt unsettled, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Evan wasn't in the living room. Liam wasn't on the couch. The house felt too quiet. Mira wiped her palms on her dress, suddenly aware of how cold her fingertips felt. Why does tonight feel wrong? Why does it feel like something is waiting outside? She stepped into the hallway and noticed the front door was locked, but the lock felt warm, as if it had been touched recently. Her heartbeat picked up. "Evan?" she called softly. "Liam?" No answer. A wave of fear crawled up her spine. She hurried to the guest room and froze. The bed was empty, the blanket neatly folded. The window cracked open just an inch, enough to let the cold air slip in. Mira felt her stomach tighten. Then she heard it, a low growl of engines outside. Not one engine, three, maybe four. Black shadows moved beyond the curtains, and her breath caught in her throat. She knew those vehicles did not belong to her neighbors. She rushed to the window and peeked. Three black SUVs blocked her dirt road. Men stepped out, all dressed in dark clothes, some with gloves, some with hard expressions that did not belong to ordinary people. Mira's blood turned cold. "Oh God, what did I let into my home?" A soft voice behind her made her jump. "Aunt Mira?" Liam stood there, holding a small stuffed wolf to his chest. His eyes were sleepy but filled with fear he was trying so hard to hide. She swallowed and forced a smile, kneeling in front of him. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here." "Where's your father?" Liam hesitated, looked toward the back door, then whispered, "He told me to stay inside no matter what I hear." Her heart sank. She understood. Something was happening outside, something Evan didn't want his son to see. She placed her hands gently on Liam's shoulders. "Stay with me, okay? We're safe in here." But she wasn't sure, and Liam felt her uncertainty. Outside, the sound of car doors slammed shut echoed through the night like gunshots. Mira grabbed Liam's hand and moved away from the windows. She guided him behind the curtain, into the narrow space between the wall and the storage shelf. "Stay here," she whispered. "Do not come out unless I say so." Liam nodded, but his small hands trembled. Then, a sudden crash echoed from the backyard. Branches snapping, footsteps, whispers, and a deep, cold voice that sent chills straight into Mira's bones. "He's here. Spread out. Don't let him escape again." Escape. Again. Mira felt her knees weaken. Evan had been running from these men? Or had these men been running from him? She didn't know anymore. She took a slow, shaky step toward the back door. Not to open it, just to listen. Voices mixed with the sound of rustling leaves. "He has the files. Boss wants him alive. If the kid or the woman gets in the way?" A pause. Then a cruel answer. "Remove the problem." Mira's breath stopped in her chest. They were talking about her. About Liam. A sharp, sudden bang rattled the kitchen door from outside. Someone testing the lock. She covered her mouth, terrified her breathing would give her away. Then, a soft, controlled voice broke through the noise outside. "Evan, no need to break her house. I'm already here." Mira rushed to the small window above the sink, heart pounding. There he stood, under the moonlight, silent, fearless, like a shadow that refused to bow even to darkness. His hair was wind-tossed, his jaw hardened, his eyes cold enough to freeze the night. He wasn't the tired father she had seen beside the road. He was something else, something dangerous. One of the men stepped forward. "Give us what you stole, Evan." "Stole?" Evan replied quietly. Funny choice of word. Another man raised a weapon, metal glinting under the porch light. Mira gasped, pressing a hand against her chest. Evan didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly. "There's a child in that house," he said calmly. "Don't make me angry." His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening, but it carried a warning so sharp it could slice steel. The men hesitated, but only for a moment. "We know the kid's yours," one of them sneered. "That makes this easier." Evan's jaw clenched. Mira could practically feel the air shift. as if the night itself stepped back in fear. Then everything happened fast. A fist swung. A body hit the wooden fence. A gunshot cracked the air. Someone screamed. Another fight erupted in the dark. Mira stumbled backward, panic crashing over her like a wave. He's fighting because of me. Because of the house we are in. Because I let him in. She had dragged Liam into the madness too. And that guilt burned through her. Another gunshot rang out, closer this time. Pieces of wood splintered off her back porch. Liam whimpered from his hiding spot. Mira, I'm scared. She ran to him, pulling him into her arms. It's okay, sweetheart. Don't look. Don't listen. Just hold on to me. She tried to stay calm for him, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, something heavy crashed. A man shouted in pain. Evan roared, a sound she'd never imagined could come from a human being. Moments later, the back door handle shook violently. Mira froze. Then a voice whispered. Mira opened the door. Evan, breathless, urgent. She hurried to the door, but stopped halfway, fear clawing at her. What if it's not him? Mira, he whispered again, louder this time. It's me. Open it, now. She unlocked the door. Evan stumbled inside, one hand pressed tightly against his ribs, blood staining his shirt. His breathing was rough, uneven. Mira's eyes widened. Oh my God, Evan. No time, he rasped. They'll regroup. We need to move. Liam ran to him. Evan knelt, wincing in pain, but still pulling his son into a tight hug. You're okay, he whispered. Good boy. You stayed hidden. Mira swallowed hard as she watched them. For the first time, she saw the truth clearly. This was not a simple father running from accidents or bad luck. This was a hunted man, a dangerous man, a man who lived in the kind of world normal people never wanted to see. And she had led him into her home. Evan stood, grabbing a jacket off the chair and tossing it over his wounded side. We're leaving, he said. Mira blinked. We? He looked at her, really looked at her. You think they'll let you stay out of this now? He said. That ship sailed the moment they saw your face. Her heart dropped. You're saying they'll hurt me? Silence. Evan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Terror washed through her. Her life, her small home, her ordinary world. Everything was slipping away. But where will we go? She whispered. Evan stepped closer, his voice low and deadly calm. Somewhere safe. But you need to trust me. His eyes softened for the first time that night. And Mira, I won't let anything happen to you. I promise. The words struck her like lightning because they came from a man who looked like he had kept and broken thousands of promises before. Suddenly, the window beside them shattered. A bullet tore through the air. Evan grabbed Mira and Liam, pulling them to the floor, shielding them with his body. Glass rained down like icy rain. Outside, voices shouted. Inside. They're inside. Evan's eyes burned with a fierce, cold fire as he whispered, They found us. Mira felt her blood freeze. And the night she was never supposed to be part of had only just begun. Gunshots still echoed in Mira's ears like distant thunder. Glass lay scattered across the kitchen floor, glittering like cruel diamonds. And in the middle of the chaos, Evan held both Mira and Liam close, breathing hard, eyes sharp, body tense like a shield made of flesh and bone. This was the night Mira's quiet world broke apart. The night she understood that fate didn't always knock gently. Sometimes it kicked down the door. Evan slowly lifted his head. They're inside the yard, he whispered. We don't have minutes. We don't even have seconds. Liam's small hand clutched his father's shirt. Dad, what's happening? Evan pressed a kiss to Liam's hair, quick, shaky, filled with fear he tried to hide. It's okay, buddy. I'm right here. Mira stood up, heart hammering painfully against her ribs. Her house, her safe little home, now felt like a battlefield. She swallowed hard. What do you need me to do? Evan looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Respect, fear, and something else he didn't have time to name. You're going to help me get him out of here." His voice was low, steady, too steady for a man bleeding from his side. "But how?" Mira whispered. "The whole house is surrounded." Evan moved to the kitchen counter, grabbed a small black bag Mira had never seen him carry before, and unzipped it. Inside were items that made Mira's stomach twist. A knife, a burner phone, a folded map, a gun. She stared at it, frozen. Evan caught her expression and paused. "I'm not asking you to fight," he said softly. "I would never put a weapon in your hands." "Then what are you asking me to do?" She breathed. Evan met her eyes. "Trust me. One more time." He picked up the gun, checked it with quick, practiced movements, and slipped it under his jacket. A loud crash shook the back porch. Mira flinched. Liam whimpered. Evan stepped forward instantly, blocking their view. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Front door." "Now!" Mira grabbed Liam's hand and hurried to the front of the house. The hallway was dark, lit only by the flickering lamp that struggled to stay alive. Evan limped slightly but moved fast, pushing through the pain. When they reached the door, he pressed his ear against it. Heavy footsteps outside. Whispers. Someone loading a weapon. Evan's jaw clenched. "They're covering both exits," he murmured. "Of course they are." Mira's fear grew thicker, heavier, almost suffocating. "They won't stop, will they?" she asked quietly. "Not until they have you." Evan didn't answer at first. Then he looked at her, and the honesty in his voice cut like ice. "They won't stop at all." A chill shot down her spine. "But why?" she whispered. "Why are they after you? What did you do?" Evan opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Not now. Not this moment." His expression hardened. "In the morning, if we survive this, I'll tell you everything." Her breath trembled. "Evan." But he didn't let her finish. He grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. "Mira, listen to me," he said. "You opened your door to a stranger. You saved my son. And tonight, you saved me too." Her eyes widened. "You didn't have to help," he said. "Yet you did. So now, I'm going to return that favor." He leaned closer. "I won't let anyone hurt you." The promise felt like iron. Unbreakable. Terrifying. Then a window shattered in the living room. A man climbed through, landing with a thud. Mira gasped. Liam clutched her leg. Evan turned instantly. Swift, focused, deadly. "Stay behind me," he ordered. The intruder's eyes met Evan's. Recognition flashed in them. "You should have stayed running," the man growled. Evan didn't waste a second. He lunged. The fight was fast, rough, and silent except for the grunt of impact. Evan slammed the man into the wall. The man swung back. A chair fell. A picture frame shattered. Mira covered Liam's eyes, holding him close, heart in her throat. Evan pinned the attacker and knocked the weapon from his hand. One punch. Two. Then the man collapsed, unconscious. Evan staggered, holding his side as fresh blood seeped through his shirt. "Evan!" Mira rushed to him. "You're bleeding again." "I'm fine," he breathed. "We need to move." "Now!" He pointed to the window the attacker used. "They left a blind spot there. We're using it to escape." Mira stared at the broken glass. "You want us to climb out through that? It's our only chance." Liam's small voice whispered, "Dad, I don't want to go outside." Evan knelt, wincing with pain. "I know, buddy, but you're strong, and I'm right here. We'll be okay." Mira felt her eyes burn. For a man covered in shadows, he had such light when he spoke to his son. She helped Evan lift Liam through the window, then climbed out herself, landing on the cold grass. Evan followed, slower, breathing through the pain. They crouched behind the house, hidden in deep shadows. The night was freezing, filled with distant barking dogs, wind, and the sound of approaching footsteps. Evan grabbed Mira's hand, just for a moment, and whispered, "Run when I say run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Hold Liam tight." Mira nodded, chest tight. "How far are we going?" she whispered. Evan didn't look at her. His eyes scanned the darkness like he could see danger before it even arrived. Far enough that they can't touch you. But what about you? He hesitated. And in that hesitation, Mira heard the truth. He wasn't sure he would make it. Before she could speak, Evan suddenly held up a hand. A flashlight beam swept across the backyard. Voices came closer. Check the back. They must be around here. Don't lose them again. Liam trembled. Mira squeezed his hand. Evan stayed still, dead still, until the lights passed. Then, now, he whispered, run. And they ran. Through the dead grass, through the windy night, through the darkness that swallowed their every breath. Mira held Liam's hand so tightly her fingers went numb. Evan ran beside them, limping but refusing to fall behind. Shouting erupted behind them. Someone spotted movement. There. There! Evan cursed under his breath. Faster. They reached the old wooden shed at the edge of Mira's land. Evan pushed them inside, closing the door silently. It smelled of earth, rust, and forgotten tools. The moon shone faintly through the cracks in the wood. Evan sank against the wall, sweat and blood mixing across his forehead. Mira knelt beside him, hands shaking. You can't keep moving like this, she whispered. You'll collapse. He looked at her through heavy breaths. I can't stop. Not tonight. Mira pressed her palm against his cheek without thinking. Evan, please, tell me the truth. Who are you really? Who are these men? Why won't they stop? He glanced at Liam, sleepy, scared, curled up against Mira's side. Evan's eyes darkened. The truth was right there, ready to break out of him. This night, he whispered, is the night everything changes. For all of us. Mira's heart skipped. What do you mean? Evan looked straight into her eyes, and finally spoke words he had been trying to hide since the moment she met him. They're not cops or criminals I betrayed. He took a slow, painful breath. They're my own men. Mira's eyes widened. She felt the world tilt beneath her. Your men? Evan nodded once. They were loyal, until someone bought them, turned them, and now they want to take everything from me. Mira stared at him, fear, shock, disbelief mixing in her chest. Evan, who are you? He closed his eyes for a moment. Then he whispered the truth. I'm not just a man on the run. His voice broke like thunder. I'm the Mafia boss they're trying to replace. Mira froze. Her breath, her thoughts, her heartbeat. Everything stopped. Liam looked up weakly, unaware of the storm his father had just unleashed. Then, a loud bang shook the shed door. Evan's eyes snapped open. They've found us.